Right now is that there we go. Hey, okay, so you know what, I timed the dissolve right, but I had the wrong microphone button set. So there we go. You know what, we now got it's officially a Logic Live. Hello everybody, my name is Andy. Welcome to today's exciting episode of the show. Before we go any further, I want to wish my grandmother a happy birthday today. It is her 97th birthday today. There she is. Wait, I'm going to go over here. That's my Nana Bagel. She's 97 years young, and we tried to get on a FaceTime with her right before the show, but we're going to have to do it after the show. So happy birthday, Nan! And what's great is she still tells everybody. Every time I talk to her, she tells me that she saw my commercial on TV, which is great. It doesn't matter what the commercial is, which is why she's my favorite, and I'm obviously she's my biggest fan. I want to welcome you all to a great show. Let's get underway. Let's see. I'm going to push this button here. This is the Keying Show with our friend Richard Betts. And this episode of Logic Live is brought to us by Synesys.io. Solutions, development, integration, and supporting flame artists since 1997. Also, this episode is sponsored by our friends at AJA. I want to welcome them back. They make the best hardware for video and streaming. Check them out at aja.com. Welcome back, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve Losi. Love you. All right. Boris FX is having our spring sale this week. Everything in their store is on sale, up to 50% off. Check them out as soon as possible because this ends tonight at midnight. I want to thank our friend Brian Fox. He offered up a 1-year subscription of Mocha Pro that I'm going to give away at the end of the show today. So thank you very much, Brian. And if you need anything in the world of plugins, please head on over to Boris FX. Oh, by the way, congratulations to our very own Jeff Kyle, who was the big winner on the Boris FX Live birthday show on Wednesday. Won himself a license of Nuke Studio. Woohoo! All right. Speaking of awesome, the guys at Gunpowder. If you have any needs for anything in the way of engineering, of support, of keeping your flame up and running, or if you'd like to try out their flame in the cloud, head on over to or hit them up rather at info@gunpowder.tech. These are great guys. I've been working with them on some cloud stuff for Lively, and I really, really am impressed with them. They're great. So gunpowder.tech, great guys. And I want to give a shout out to all of our patrons on Patreon. I want to say thank you very, very much for your support and for supporting everything that we're doing here at Logic. We have 3 tiers of support that you can sign up for at Patreon. Randy and I are working on a couple more that we hope to have a big announcement for you soon. These get you great merch. They get you exclusive discounts, exclusive content, or access to exclusive content. We have a show, an after show after every Logic Live. We're going to have one after this where our patrons can do a Q&A and kind of geek out on keying with Richard. So if you'd like to support what we're doing here at Logic, please go ahead and sign up at patreon.com/LogicTV. Thank you to all of our patrons. And of course, if you haven't already checked it out, please check out the very first installment of Logic Academy, which is Connected Conform, put together by our friend Jeff Kyle. It's available now at logicacademy.com. It's an amazing 3-part tutorial on using Connected Conform. Logic Academy is going to be a wonderful thing. It's content put together by users for users. So thank you very much, Jeff, for putting that together. And this is a great week to be a flame artist, ladies and gentlemen, because on Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, Autodesk is hosting a Catch Up with Flame webinar. They're going to show off all the new features of the 2022 release. The members of the dev team are going to be there for a Q&A. The whole thing's going to be moderated by our friend Bilali Mack, who was a guest on the show at one point. And I put the registration link for this in the YouTube description because it was too long to copy and paste in the chat. So definitely hit them up, sign up. And after the webinar presentation, there's going to be the presentation of this year's Flame Award, emceed by yours truly. And I want to give a huge bit of congratulations and acknowledgement to all of the nominees for this year's Flame Award. Again, I see Bilali, who we did a podcast with. And then there's, I believe Randy McEntee has something to do with Logic. Renee was on the show. She's fabulous. Sinan was on episode 2. And I believe he's been upside down ever since, or he wins best hair, But I just want to thank everybody who participated in this year's Flame Award. I believe there were like 2,000 votes for the 14 different nominees. So definitely tune in on Wednesday for that. All right, but enough of me. Let's bring on our guest for today. Keying is one of like the tentpole, one of the tentpole aspects of compositing, right? Keying, color correction, tracking, roto. I remember when I first started out as a flame artist, I was very intimidated by keying. It seemed like a dark art, but then I decided to learn what it meant, like to learn what all the buttons did and learn what the sliders did and really kind of just familiarize myself with what was going on under the hood. And now I love keying. It's like a challenge, you're given something, let's figure it out. So my guest today is Richard Betts. He's coming to us all the way from New Zealand. When I did the run through with Richard, at times the signal he was sending over, the quality was dropping out. It might just be due to the distance. So if that does happen, don't worry. He's recording locally on his end, and I'll get the file and re-edit and upload so we have something pristine, because you're definitely going to want to see his node graph and the flame interface and everything that he's doing. So I'm going to unmute Richard, and I'm going to go like this. Hey, man. How's it going?
Hello. Yeah, very good. Very well. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Welcome to Logik Live. It's so great. Like, there was a thread on the forum about keying, and Richard chimed in very generously. And obviously the only way that you could possibly repay someone for being so generous with knowledge is to entice them to come on the show and share it with everyone. So Richard, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive right on into keying.
Yeah, well, it was really easy for me to take up the offer to come on, because I think, like a lot of people here, I'm very grateful for people sharing their little nuggets of information and stuff. So this is my way of repaying the favor in some way. But yeah, I've been doing this job for nearly 20 years. I started in early 2000 at the mill in London, where I had a really good apprenticeship, starting tea and coffee, and then all the way up to flame artist. And it was at the mill London where I met my wife, who is a Kiwi, and she dragged me back to New Zealand. And I've been here since 2009 with a little stint in Sydney working at Fin Design, but I'm back here and loving it. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Do you want to share your flame screen there and take us through?
Yeah.
We're going to begin with an overview of keying, of the good old days, really, the kind of where it all started, at least as far as flame is concerned.
Just give me a heads up. Tell me if you can see that.
Oh, yes. Here we go. Boom.
Yeah. So keying, a small topic. I actually got same as you, Andy. In fact, it was a funnier starting point, because when you're a junior, when you're an assistant, you're really not you're not allowed to touch the major shots and do the major keying stuff. So you're very much given roto tasks, paint tasks, then cleanup tasks and stuff like that. So yeah, the green screen keying did seem a little intimidating. But as I've gone through the years, it's impossible to avoid. It's so crucial and integral to our job and what we do. And recently, in the last couple of years, I've had a real kind of passion for it, and looking at some of the history and stuff like that about the keying and other techniques that were around, which I think is really fascinating. We started, all the way back with black and white film, but even at black and white film stage, they were still using blue screens to separate the foreground and the background. We've had yellow screens. I don't know if many people know about that or have seen that, but sodium vapor was used extensively by Disney during the 50s and 60s. So the Mary Poppins movies were all shot against yellow screens, and then blue and red and gray and all these different kind of variants based on a sort of theme. But where we are now, whenever someone says keying, my mind instantly goes to green screens. But I've done my fair share of blue as well, and occasionally I've done a gray screen as well, which I don't think I'll ever go back to. But I can always touch on that later.
Right. No, it's like keying is like that. Maybe that one thing in the world of compositing where it's like it's beneficial to know what to do when it isn't working. Like when the one button keyer isn't working, having a good working knowledge of the technology behind it and of the methods behind it are key to kind of look what I did there. Jeff, that was for you. Are key for to solving that riddle. So let me bring up your flame here. All right. So why don't you take us on a trip in the Wayback Machine here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. That's kind of the basis for my wanting to learn a little bit more about it. Is maybe I can find a little nugget or a technique that I can use to get me out of a pickle. I like to have a good arsenal of tricks up my sleeve. I'm still very much firmly based in commercials, so for me, speed is of the essence. But when the fastest technique doesn't work, then you've got to reach around for something else. So yeah, let's have a look, because we've got a lot of keyers in Flame, and in fact, I've bundled them up into this little tab here, just to make it easier for me to pull them out. But the first keyers that Flame had were the RGBs, the hue saturation. What else have we got? Oh, this little classic, the
monster,
the RGB CMYK, the one key to rule them all. And when I was starting out, these keyers were incredibly popular at the mill. This one always baffled me. There was a few artists I can remember that totally swore by it, but these keyers were integral to most people's workflow. Look at the YUV one. Let me just grab that. This is a favorite of mine. I still use this one. But basically, they're all doing the same sort of thing. They are sampling a base color, your green, and then increasing the tolerance and playing with the softness. And then you can, on the YUV, you can turn off the U and V channels just to get a luminance key, or hue saturation. Same thing, you set a base level, you increase your tolerance, you play with the softness, and maybe. So I like the hue saturation here, especially if I'm doing any sort of color mats, just the ability to shut down saturation or ignore the luminance of the color and stuff like that. It can be really handy. It doesn't always pull the best key, but if you're just using it for a grading mat, it's nice to have your thought process in the hue, saturation, and luminance levels. And RGB, obviously, there we go. But there was this was early 2000, and there was a new keyer on the block, but it was quite intimidating at the time. Not many people were using it. And occasionally we'd get, someone coming in from overseas, maybe an Australian or a South African, just to shake up the gene pool a little bit. And they'd come with, new mysterious techniques. And the new one at the time was the Modular Keyer, which was only accessible inside Action. It's still there now. I need a foreground input. And it was this curious mini batch that would enable you to pull a key using the 3D keyer, and you could build up a tree of different types of key, a strong edge key, a nice good edge key or a strong fill, and you could blend them all together. To be honest, it's been so many years now since I've been into the Modular Keyer. I think I would be a little lost, but it's basically the fundamentals of batch. So everything can be done outside of the Modular Keyer. But inside the Modular Keyer was this awesome keyer called the 3D keyer. And I still think this is my go-to keyer of choice. Normally what I do is I toss the histogram to one side, and I just lightly tap around on the tolerance, and then I add a little bit of softness. I hold down N and sample an area for softness and noise, and then I hold down Alt N and I slide it up until I get a good edge like that. And maybe I just go T click and just increase the tolerance on those extra little noisy crumbs on the edge. And there you go. I've got a really nice key. And while I was preparing myself for this podcast, I was just trying to remember the keys for I just thought I'd show off the histogram, because it's quite an interesting looking feature, and it makes you look really technical. like I say, I usually toss it to one side. I don't use it, but it's showing you what the difference is between this keyer and these other keyers here. These keyers, they could be called 2D keyers. They're just basing it around the 2D color sampling, and then the 3D keyer, by its very name, is using this 3D histogram to show you what it is that it's sampling. And while I was playing around, because I thought I remembered a way of changing the shape of it into a circle, and I thought and then I stumbled across a whole range of hotkeys that I'd never even, let me just pull up the map. I never even used. I don't know if anyone uses the 3D keyer to its full extent, or understands these functions better than me. But these are kind of like holding down 6 or 7 on this histogram can modify it. I must admit that was quite exciting.
I remember there was also one. It might have been 8. There was one that would turn on control points on that translucent sphere and allow you to like deform the shape of it. It was really amazing and ahead of its time.
The convex hull. What the heck is that? Here we go. Somewhere.
There it is.
There we go. Yeah. So I think by holding down V and selecting, or is it Alt V? But yeah, like I said, I don't normally go into such depths with this, but yeah, by holding down and sampling the color, you could then extend that. Yeah, it was fascinating and very, I can see how incredibly versatile it could be to someone. But I think that versatility also put a lot of people off. I mean, the way I learned, I must have watched a tutorial or something, or someone showed me the very basics, T click, S softness, and that's all I knew, and that's all I did. But it's given me a brilliant key every time, so I'd never really looked that much deeper than that. And then the other keyer that came around after that was the Master Key, which again was another excellent keyer. I found it was supposed to simplify the process. I think under the hood, it's doing a very similar sort of 3D keyer as the 3D keyer, but in a slightly more digestible interface. So we've got these 2 sample color pads down here. You can hold down the Alt button and it will bring up little sliders where you can adjust your matte areas. And like with the 3D keyer, you've got patches built into this. So you've got up to 3 patches that you can turn on, and you can sample areas to put a patch over certain colors and stuff like that. It's very good. But because I'd already spent my time, I didn't know all the features, but I spent my time with the 3D keyer and I was getting good results on that. I never really gelled with the Master Keyer and its slider features. But what a color suppressor! I mean,
oh, it's amazing.
I use it for my color suppression nearly all the time. So
yep, I think
for that itself, it earned its place in my node bin.
Yeah, I remember and I'm probably going to get slapped for this, but I remember that the modular keyers, the Master Keyers kind of like, I don't know, selling point or the way maybe I understood it in like simple terms was it was the closest thing to a 1-button keyer that you were going to get. It had really simple controls. I remember like having like a whole conversation with I think it was with Philippe Soireau once about like what those different things mean, like the bracket A and bracket B and bracket C, and they do represent different aspects of the of the key. But to your point, you try these things out, you see what works great, and then you kind of lean on it for that. So great tool.
Yeah, I mean, these have done us proud for many years, and these came along, and I totally get it. You're working under intense pressure. You haven't really got time to learn and maybe make a few mistakes and stuff like that. You just want to you have a quick look, you try it. If it's not working, I'll go back to what I know. And that's part of the speed process. Even if someone tells you till they're blue in the face that these are faster once you learn how to use them, if you just can't switch into it, then you're just going to go back, and you can do just as good a key just as fast using your familiar techniques rather than struggling and spending that time with something unfamiliar. And And I think that goes into nicely the podcast that you had the other week with Jeff about the learning process. And I've got a real curiosity for this kind of thing, but it baffled me for a long time, and it was very much put onto the back burner. So I've done quite a few green screens like everybody else, but it was when I came to New Zealand that I was doing commercials, but also we were working on long form TV shows, and we were doing a TV series called Spartacus, Blood and Sand. And the amount of green screen in that series was phenomenal. So we all had a lot of time and a lot of experience pulling keys on well, similar to this, hairy slaves and trying to pull keys on fast moving phantom shots where the green was really underlit and stuff like that. So it became important for us to try and expand our arsenal of tricks. And one of them was, certainly for me, I really wanted to get a really functional additive keyer. It seemed to be the holy grail after you've mastered these keyers and pulled a good key, was trying to get those really good edges. And we used to get quite a few overseas artists coming in to help us. It was quite a big operation that the company I was at had, and we'd have a lot of people. A lot of them had backgrounds in Nuke and were using Flame, and they'd bring in all their crafty techniques from that. And you'd pick up pieces and they'd show you little tips and tricks. But at the time, it was just all a little bit too confusing for me. I was quite happy to stick with my modular keyer and to stick with what I knew. But it didn't go away, and I started to collect some of their little tricks and techniques and put them into a little batch setup, which grew over time. I mean, some of these have been shown to me, and some of them I've rebuilt from watching YouTube tutorials and stuff like that. We've got the IBK. That's actually the Matchbox there, but before Matchbox, someone showed me the maths behind the IBK. We've got an additive keyer here, and I've put all them together with the very same input, so that I can then compare them and see which ones work better than others. So I can flick through my context here and have a look at this rope coming down off the rigging, and that's quite good. It's better than that one or whatever, and compare and contrast and stuff like that, going back to the original. And it was at this stage that I was realizing that the additive, the IBK keyer, although was extremely daunting to me at the time and had lots of nodes, was giving me really, really good results. So I made it a little mission of mine to try and understand it. At the time, I was working with an artist called what was his name, Eyal, and he showed me this batch. This is his IBK rebuilt for me, and I was just, what? I don't quite understand it. But he was really nice, and he zipped it together into a Matchbox for me. And so in some ways that closed the door, and I didn't really look any further into this setup. But it was a Matchbox that only worked on the Linux boxes. And when I moved back into this home office that I'm in now on my Mac, it never worked. So I took that as an opportunity to get stuck in and to try and figure it out. Let's go back to here and just talk about what we've got. So I'll just pull out the Matchbox for now and keep it simple, because I think that's where the thread started from. I said, what are the options that we got for keying? And I suggested that they use the IBK because I'd been absolutely spamming it at work. That's my technique for learning a new trick, actually, is I just absolutely spam it until it makes sense to me. Yeah. And I'd use it on everything until I found out all its foibles and all its advantages. And I had a phase where I was using the perspective grid on everything. It became a bit of a joke at work. But I figured it out.
That's how nicknames are born.
So let's get
the IBK keyer. IBK is an image-based keyer. That's what it stands for. right? And I guess
Oh yeah,
similar,
actually,
the traditional keyers, the ones you showed at the top, they're subtractive. You're picking a color and you're removing that when you create your alpha or create your matte. And then there's additive keyers where you're adding things back in, and image-based keyers where you're using the different channels of the image to combine foreground and background. Correct?
yeah, that's right. It's comparing the clean background with the plate and increasing its calculations based on that. So
Mm-hmm.
so I was actually it was it was a hunt for an additive keyer that I was really looking for, and I ended up with an image-based keyer. But funnily enough, as I grew to understand the IBK technique, and I looked back at a lot of the other additive keyers that I collected over time, they all have a fundamental element, which is the clean plate. They all require a clean plate, and although the IBK Matchbox will create a clean plate for you, these techniques all benefit from having a clean plate that you've either shot especially for, you've got the actors to clear the scene and you've shot an empty green screen, although it never seems to happen. Or you've created the clean
Yeah, I
plate
was just going
yourself.
to say that there's one more thing that you're not going to get that you ask for
Yeah.
on the shoot, right?
And also subtle things can change, the lighting can change, and maybe just clearing them out of the plate changes the way that the light is hitting the green screen, and suddenly it's not much use. That clean plate isn't much use for you anymore, or the camera's moving and the clean plate's never going to track or match. So being able to create your own clean plate will enhance these additive keyers, and particularly the IBK keyer. So let's have a quick look at just putting it into this plate and using it off the bat. So first off, it's got a default green color, and it's pulling a key because green is green. But I can improve that if I just sample the green to be my green. And it's a pretty good key. It's pretty delicate and light. It's got a bit of noise down here. There's no real option for tolerance in here. You've got these controls down here for weighting, which I'll explain later. And by sliding the weight around, you do have an impact on the map that it falls. But to be honest, I find the weighting slightly unintuitive. So what will really improve this is by giving it a better clean plate. Let's have a look, because the one of the output options of the Matchbox is to show you the clean plate that it's creating. So there you go. It's pretty good, but you can see it's got quite a lot of softness, and it's not kept the seam in this plate. And again, one of the reasons to go to the IBK would be if you've got a plate that has a lot of seams or a lot of unevenness, and just by pulling a traditional key on a plate like this, as you increase your tolerance to pick up some of these dark seams, you're going to be losing fidelity in hair and stuff like that. So this is it's more on these types of images where the IBK will come into its own. I mean, I'm sure I can pull a really good key on this plate here. I mean, I've done a pretty good one using the 3D keyer, and the key that the IBK pulls might not be any better. I'll do it quickly just to show you, because I want to talk you through the steps that I take to make a very quick clean plate. So what I generally do
is it using the clean plate? Is like a difference mat part of the equation, or the difference is there a difference
Yep,
aspect to the math? Okay,
yep,
that
absolutely.
makes
So
sense.
once it's got the clean plate, it can then do a difference between the two. But it's not. In fact, one of the other keys I didn't talk about was the difference mat. It's not a difference mat in the sense that you get a difference key like this. It's part of the process. So it pulls a key, and then it does a difference mat, and it tells you how the key that it can be improved by looking at what the clean plate is. It helps with transparency and fine hairs and what have you. So all I want to do is just pull a very hard key on the green. I'm just going to increase the contrast on that. And once you've got that, I'll invert it and cut it out. So I'll multiply to cut it out. One thing I should touch upon now, because it can be confusing. The way that I use multiply and divide, I actually like to feed the mat. You can put the two inputs together like that and turn on multiply, and it gives you the multiplied image. But if you feed the mat into the mat input, it also gives you the multiply, even if this wasn't set to multiply. And the advantage to that is that it actually carries the alpha through the comp node. So it's not explicitly saying that it's multiply. I should probably mark it as so. But it carries the alpha channel through the node like you would in Nuke, which I find really satisfying. So here we go.
That's an amazing tip, by the way. That's like the buried lead that you just dropped there. You know,
yeah.
If you use your comp node like that, then you get the mat pass through like you do in Nuke. So
you'd think that now I've got this, I could do a. So you'd think now that I've got a cutout and a mat, I could probably just do a pixel spread, and you can just do a pixel spread, turn it into interpolate, and just shrink that down. There we go. And you see how I don't know if it's coming through on the feed very well, but you can see now how my clean plate has kept that seam that runs through the right-hand side of the frame.
Mm-hmm.
So now if I use my IBK, the fourth input on the matchbox takes your clean screen, and then you use the external clean screen down here. So there we have, and I compare it. One, context two, and it's taken all the noise out, most of the noise, and it's kept the detail in the hair. There's a little fringing coming from the hardness of my mat and the fact that my pixel spread is eating into it. If you look hard, I've lost all the grain and stuff, but the results, it'll look better when I'm working on something with a lot of seams in. I just wanted to show you the very simplistic clean plate technique. Like I said, usually pulling a hard key, but I picked up something from Mihran. I'll go back to my green screen collection of crafty techniques. And down here, I've tried to rebuild Mihran's setup. I actually struggled a little bit with his setup, not because of his technique, but because of my ability. Those of you who watched it, he's got this great chroma separation trick where he takes the green screen and he takes a flat gray, and then using the Photoshop color, he basically strips out all the luminance and just keeps the chroma values of the screen. And from that, he then color corrects it and creates his matte. But I just thought that was awesome. I loved it. I totally got it. I didn't quite understand, or I couldn't quite manage to grade the mattes the way that he did. But this I thought was brilliant. And it gave me an idea. And I thought, well, I could use this for creating my hard mattes. So now my new and improved quick clean plate uses a part of his technique here, where I am just, oops, there we go. I just need to sample the size, match the size T, click on that. There you go. And it gives me a really nice hard key when I color correct it up. I can cut that out and shrink, and I come up with. And the beautiful thing about this is that the IBK isn't keying a certain color of green. It's looking at the amount of green in the image. So all your green screens will have green in them. And this chroma extraction, and later on the way that the IBK works, will always extract the green from the image. So your calculations will work instantly. That's why I have these little preset, set match these little groups. I can pull them out and they'll just tack on will speed up your process because you can just drag in a setup.
Richard, there was a question in the chat from Brooks who was wondering, is it good to denoise the plate first?
Yeah. I was gonna show you that. I've got a
oh, cool.
I've got a denoised version here of our Viking. Yeah, it always makes a hell of a difference. So we can change our output back to be the comp and the edges there. You can see, is the feed showing that?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yep.
So you're fixing all of those edge crumbs, and the quality of your clean plate then isn't so essential. Let's go over to this one anyway, which has all the seams and stuff in it. I'll talk you through my quick clean plate setup that I've got here. So let's drop that in. I'll do a comparison as well. I'll grab the IBK and put it onto this image here, and I will just let the IBK do its thing without any inputs, and you can see how it's lacking the clean plate to pull all the seams. The result of the IBK's clean plate is not terribly good. I've got a seam down here, but the rest is just blurry and soft. So I'm going to pull out my quick clean plate setup, which is generic, and I'm just going to plug in my input. Make sure that the resolution of your flat gray color is matching, and just put it through the setup. And this image isn't giving me any result when I multiply. But that can quickly be fixed, and any image can quickly be fixed just by increasing the saturation on the plate. And it's just using this to pull the hard key, so it doesn't matter that we're making it super saturated. But by dialing that saturation up, suddenly the chroma extraction kicks in, then my color correction for creating high contrast, a little bit of a shrink, and then I can use it to cut my green screen out, and then that can then be blurred and multiplied and divided. And then on top of that, I do the pixel spread. So maybe I should explain why I do that little step. So as I showed you before, just putting on a pixel spread onto the cutout green screen is going to give you some very funny edges. And by turning it up, it's still going to give you some, the color of the fill is going to be quite dark and stuff. And shrinking it's just going to reduce the amount of fidelity you've got on your edges, which is where you really need that result. If I pipe this version into the IBK and use an external, it's good, but it's still got all these problems around the edge. So I want to do a slightly different technique. And anyone who's seen the IBK in Nuke will know that there's a two-step process to it. There's an IBK color and there's an IBK gizmo. And the IBK color, its main job is just to create the clean plate for you. And it does this by doing a series of blurs and divides. And I've cheated a little bit because we've got the interpolate, but the pixel spread, which Nuke doesn't have. But you can see that just by doing a little bit of a shrink using the blur and divide, the improvement on the two clean plates here and here is considerable.
Oh wow!
You know,
yeah.
we've got the seam going in much closer. So because I've shrunk it before I did the pixel spread, then the calculation on the pixel spread doesn't need any shrink, doesn't need to be crushed quite so much as this one. I mean, I've got a shrink value here of 26, so my edges are being quite considerably corrupted. And then it's important to make sure you put back the detail where the detail was. The pixel spread does quite a blur to it, and so does the blur. So just by using your hard key again and restoring that detail, you're putting all of the detail outside of that back onto the plate. And that happens really quickly. That's just a drag and drop setup that I put in. You might need to increase the saturation for this chroma extraction to kick in. But now if I compare it to my previous version, there we go. So I'll just put my context on so you can see. So context 1 versus context 2.
Wow.
We're pulling the detail back into the hair.
Yeah.
And as you said, as you mentioned, and over his shoulder, we've got the grain coming off. But as we mentioned, the degrain process can really help. You can use the denoise, the flame denoise, if you want. But I to be honest, I've just recently been given a license to Neat Video, and I don't go much further than that. So let's.
Oh yes, welcome to the future.
It's beautiful.
It's amazing,
amazing.
right? It's like.
Are you ready for a deep dive into Neat Video? So I click the auto profile, and then I click apply. But all joking aside, I did watch the podcast from the Neat Video guys, and it was enlightening. I'm looking forward to a flicker plate to have a play with, or maybe some H.264 compression, because it just looked amazing. The demo that he showed was phenomenal. But for me, I can get a really excellent denoise just by using the auto features. So let's compare.
Stephen in the chat. Stephen in the chat had he put up a comment here saying that if Pixelspread gives unexpected results, throw in a clamp node on the matte input.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever tried that?
I mean, the results that I'm getting from Pixelspread are not terribly unexpected. I kind of expected it, but let me see. Let me not be. I'm still. I mean, I still get the result that I would expect. So it's not an unexpected result. But yeah, I think having clamp on standby for any unexpected result is helpful, and it does feature later on when we start to pull the key using the IBK keyer. So we can have a look at that. I'm never afraid. I never shy away from trying someone's technique and advice. And I think that's another step to learning, is that you never know. Someone might have an awesome solution to a problem that's been bugging you forever. So never shy away from trying a different technique. So that's a very quick clean plate technique, which I've repeated down here. In Nuke, you might see multiple chains of the IBK color being chained together. And effectively what they're doing is they are doing very tiny amounts of blur and then divide, and then chaining it together with another blur and divide. So in this setup, although it looks quite complicated, I'm just recreating that step process where I am just blurring and divide, and then blurring and divide, and then blurring and divide, and slowly it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you're getting what some people might recognize as the IBK clean plate process. And then again, at the last stage, when I don't think I need to spread it out anymore, I'll just do the Pixelspread to fill in those gaps. But again, I tested this one. I have an IBK here, pulling the key, and I tested that step process against my lazy one, and I couldn't really see much of a difference. So it's just worth showing. Sometimes you might need to do it, but you know, equally the clean plate du jour for this shot can be solved in just one very quick shrink. In fact, I think Nuke calls this a dilate trick, but it's a multiply blur divide, which is good, you know, on some beauty spots and stuff like that. It's a very useful technique. And then on the forum, I was talking about how time spent generating a clean plate can really improve your IBK key. So I talked briefly about how you might stabilize the background. Then you can still cut the background out. And I wanted to show this technique because it's a lovely technique. It's the recursive ops So now that I've got my my green screen cut out, you can run recursive ops over it and just sit back and watch while it generates a clean plate for you as the people move around.
Yeah, recursive ops is like that unsung hero, man. I mean, like Sean showed it from the Vanity, showed it a couple weeks ago, where he had a guy walk across an airport terminal with like, you know, one black card, you know, to block the light coming in from the windows. And they didn't have enough black to cover the whole scene. So he just walked across the scene, recursive ops, and then there you go. Now you have the whole scene. So yeah, recursive ops is a great tool.
You got to be, it is. I love it. You got to be mindful of the problems that it can bring up, though. If you can see here, we've got some kind of streaky lights from his hair where I've left some crumbs of hair lying around, and that's contaminating my clean plate. In that situation, then I sometimes just knock out the hair area that's causing the contamination, and just run the recursive ops again.
Uh-oh. Well, we seem to have lost Richard, but we'll never forget him. Let's see. While we wait for Richard to come back, I think this would be a phenomenal time to give away a prize, huh? How about that? Let's do that. Let's play some music and let's give away a prize. All right, we're doing it live, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. Check this out, huh? Randy, what do you think of this? Okay. All right, so this is for a Logik Live mask, ladies and gentlemen, courtesy of our friends at Synesys.io. We're going to spin the big wheel. Of course, I have to remember to click in the actual Safari window and not in the image of the Safari window. There we go. And Emre, congratulations, my friend. Congratulations. All right. And, oh, hold on. How long did it take me to figure out? A lot quicker than you think. And thank God, because Richard is now back. All right. Welcome back, Richard. Yes, we gave away a prize. It was perfect. Well, hold on. The music is in loop. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we return you now to your previously scheduled program.
Well, I heard the applause for the recursive ops, so I assume that we lost you just after that.
Yes, it was just you had done the masks around the head to get rid of the junk that was there, and then that was it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, enough said. The time spent on the clean plate can sometimes improve the key immensely, but that's just part one of the IBK, pulling in the clean plate. So from now on, I'm just going to leave the clean plate set up here inside the green box. And I'm going to move on to what the IBK is actually doing. So when you're using the matchbox, it's not always obvious what is happening under the hood. And because my matchbox that I had written for me didn't work on a Mac, I had to go back to the maths behind it and figure it out. So what we get when we plug in a clean plate, I'll just check that it's got the external, there we go. What we're getting a green subtracted image, and we're getting an alpha out of the IBK, okay? And the alpha that it's pulling is two parts. So part one is the plate itself. And all we're doing is we're separating the color channels. We've separated the green, the red, and the blue. The red and the blue are added together and then subtracted from the green. But as I mentioned before, we've got this weighted thing. The values of the red and green are halved in this particular setup by just having a 50% gain here. And so half the red and half the blue are added together, And it's that is subtracted from the green, which gives you a key, a matte. You know, it's extracted the green from the image, and that's the result. It's not a great key. The background is very gray, and I could color correct that up and try and get a working matte, but the beauty of the IBK is the comparison between the plate and the clean screen. So the exact same key gets pulled on the clean plate. The red and the blue channel are added together with 50% of each, and then subtracted from the green. And that is not a matte that you want to use at all. But the real secret sauce in the IBK is it does a divide between the key that it's pulled on the plate and the key that it's pulled on the clean screen. And where the values are identical is where your clean plate and your green screen are. And if the numbers are identical, when they get divided, the number is 1. So that pumps up the white on your green screen, which automatically improves the key that it's pulled on the plate right there. It has to step through a couple of things. You have to invert it, and you have to clamp it. I'm just going to go back into my range. I used 412 frames for my recursive ops, but I'm only working on 100 frames for this, so it does get a little messy towards the end. Right. And there we have it, the IBK key based on a comparison between the plate and the green screen.
Cool.
Now that's all it is. It then uses that matte to cut out the clean plate, and it's that gets subtracted from the original plate, which gives you the green subtraction. I'm calling it green subtraction, not green suppression, because it's quite significantly different from the green suppression that you get, say, from the Master Key. It's very much a green subtracted. But the results of the rebuilt IBK should be identical to the results of the Matchbox. If I just compare the two. So the results of my green subtraction and the Matchbox are identical, and then my alpha is identical as well. Now you might, actually there is a little bit of extra stuff at the end here. If I compare the alphas, apart from the color space being wrong, if I compare the alphas, there are a few little crumbs being left out, which are put in by pulling a luminance on the green subtraction and adding that back in using the max lighten. So it just puts a few of those bright highlights back into your matte. And now I've got a like for like on my Matchbox versus the rebuild. And it might seem overly complicated and might seem completely unnecessary to rebuild the Matchbox when you've got a perfectly good Matchbox. But like when you're doing maths at school and they say show your workings, there's some advantage to having it in the open. There are threads of this that can be used. And had I never rebuilt the IBK, I would have never realized that the secret sauce is the divide between the two plates. And it's not unique to the IBK keyer. You can do that with any keyer. So say down here, I've got the exact same plate. I've got the exact same clean green screen. I can pull any key that I want. So this is Master Keyer with all the seams in the screen. If I use that key exactly the same on the clean plate and then invert them and do the divide, then I get the IBK cleaning up my Master Keyer matte. I just then to negate it out. And the difference between my Master Keyer and my IBK Master Keyer is that it's cleaned up the green screen. It's taken out all of that uneven matting. So thank you. So you can use this technique on 3D keyer and just do the divide. So the dividing the 3D keyer using the clean plate, or here we've got the YUV keyer, using it to clean up the green screen. So yeah, the beauty of showing your workings and having figured it out was that you can then feed it off into other things. You might, like I said, I find the weighting options and being able to tweak the IBK pretty tricky. If I'm not liking the results of what the IBK keyer is giving me, then by me flicking around the blue and the red weights doesn't really do it for me. But I've always got the option to just use another keyer and still get all of the magic of the IBK coming through.
That's
so that's
great.
good.
That's great.
The other thread that you can pull off using the IBK is you can create a clean green screen. So as opposed to a clean plate, it's cleaning up the green screen that you have. So getting rid of all the seams. So you can use that plate then for some additive keyer process. So, and this doesn't have to be extracted from the rebuilding of the IBK. You can do it from the matchbox. So what you're looking to do is you're looking to get the perfect green screen. You know, so you look at your clean plate and you say, yeah, look at these spots that are all over it. Look at these seams. I really wish it was a little more evenly lit, you know. So, you know, I wish it was more blurred like that. And you can use that to against the clean plate and say, well, okay, well, this is what I really wanted it to be, and this is what you've given me. If I subtract that, what I'm left with is everything that's bad about the green screen. You know, all the bits that I really wanted to be removed, that's making this my additive keyers really tricky to use. I can say, well, that's the bits that I wanted to extract. And if I make this easy to begin with, like I'm making it really hard. If I make it easy to begin with by just saying, well, I'm going to take everything that's bad about this green screen and I'm going to add it on to my green screen plate, I can effectively crush out all of that, all of those wrinkles.
Right, because
Why is it an
else
add?
that all exists like in negative numbers, right? Like in
Yes.
negative space.
Yeah. So this image here has got a full range. It's got negative values and it's got positive values. And if you look at the areas that you can actually see, where it's bright green, it's on an area of dark green. So it's the opposite of what's good, you know, bad about the green screen. So here where you've got this dark scene, well, I've got a bright green screen, or at least a bright green line. And by adding it in, that's inverting that and subtracting that or adding that wherever it needs to be. It gets a little bit more functional when you put it into your IBK setup. If you say use the alpha that it's pulled, the mat that it's pulled, and you cut it out from your green screen cleanup, and then you use that. Let's get my.
Okay, yeah. Then you won't see any changes in the, like I could
Then
see
you're
in
not
some
seeing
of those, like whatever the steampunk instruments are that these guys have been furiously working on in the course of their revolution or whatever it is they're planning.
Yeah. So if I don't, yeah, exactly. If I don't use the mat to subtract, then I'm getting an effect on the plate itself, on the actual image that I'm trying to preserve. Whereas if I do cut it out, then I'm not getting that effect. And then that can be pushed onto an additive keying or whatever it is you want to do, or maybe you want to pull another key on that using another keyer. But that's really handy. And again, that is not unique to the IBK either. You can do that if you've got a clean plate using anything. So here's my clean plate. And again, all I'm doing is just subtracting it. And what I've ended up here is I'm taking the clean plate, I'm subtracting it from my plate, and I'm ending up with a full range. But now it's not the seams in the green screen that's retaining, because they're in my subtraction. All you're left with is everything that's not the green screen. And again, I call this the full range because it's got negative values, and you can kind of see the image coming through. And if you just add that on to a flat green, you know, this is the perfect green screen. This is what I would have liked them to have shot. When I add that full range image onto it, I get my image back on a perfectly flat green screen. Down here, I'm using a master keyer. So a master keyer, just pulling a color suppression. I'm not even using the alpha output here. I'm just suppressing the green, and then I do exactly the same thing on my clean plate. I subtract to find out what the difference is, and I've got a full range image. And then if I add that onto a flat gray, I get my color suppressed image on a flat gray with none of the seams and none of the wrinkles. It might seem like rebuilding the IBK is overly complicated, and this little trick can be achieved by using the matchbox, but just by having all your workings on show can make it a lot easier. There's another little feature that you can make use of when you break it all out. So again, it doesn't have to be done by breaking out the workings. You can do it by using just the matchbox, but it's a lot easier to understand when you do break it out. So I've got my clean plate. I do my IBK comparison, and I get my mat, and then I'm left with my green subtracted image here. What's being fed up through here is the clean plate and my alpha cutting it out. So I've got this kind of cookie cutter cut out here. This is the leftover bits. If you're calling this the green subtract, then this bit here is everything that was just left over. This is the rejects. And I can do a complete feedback loop if I just add it back in, and I'm back to my original image again, just by adding it in. Well, by manipulating this leftover bit, say, I don't know, maybe it's a color correction. Maybe it's, let's go for a hair wash or something like that. So if I just do a quick, hue shift to make it orange dread colored, and I add that back in, we're washing orange around the area of his head. Still got a little bit of green spill actually, but that's how these demos go sometimes when I'm on speed, when I'm doing it fast. But you can make that, you can wash that to be any color you want. You know, you can swing the hue around and balance it up, make it brighter, make it darker. You know, all of this will add back into your plate. You can even use the plate itself. So if we take the plate and we just multiply it over, let's make it mono. We take a green mono of our plate and we multiply. We're putting the background image into the green spill. I just need to brighten that up for it to work. Brighten it up till we're in the same kind of zone. And when that gets added back on, we've got the startings of an additive keying process here. Again, not unique to the IBK. It can be done using the Master Key as well. We've got Master Key color suppression and color suppression happening on the clean plate. Subtract it to give me the full range, and then I can separate my low lights and my highlights by using max lighting on a black frame. So I'm just pulling out my highlights here and my low lights here, which are negative values. So I'm not going to see them until I flip them around. I think I've gone a little bit deep on this one. So apologies if it's not making a whole lot of sense. I will share my setups with you. But effectively what I've done is I've multiplied on the shadows and I've added on the highlights and put it back on using the alpha. And there's beginnings of a really good additive keyer just by taking some of the threads out.
No, that's a great technique. I
thought I'd go back to me. Maybe I should.
Oh, there we are. Hey.
Hey. All right.
Yeah, we lost your screen there, but you're back. No, it's a great technique. I mean, that's the beauty of the additive key. You know, you're eliminating all of the problems of subtracting the details out. You know, and what you're doing is you're kind of massaging the other aspects of the image to make that work. I have 2 questions for you here.
Mm-hmm.
The first is from Simon. He's wondering, do all of these techniques work as well with moving plates, like on green screens that are fluttering in the wind?
Interesting. Yeah, they do work very well with fluttering green screens, because this clean plate generation or clean plate creation is working on every frame. Then as the green screen flutters around, this part of the green screen is going to keep all of that fluttering. And all we're doing is just dragging in the green from around it. So as the green screen flutters and changes color, then yeah, the clean plate also follows that. I mean, it's all degrees of how well your clean plate is made and how close, to the nearest pixel you're spreading is working. But again, you can go crazy with the cascading method and stuff, and you'll keep all of that luminance change and all of that flicker. Yeah, I mean, when the green screen isn't moving or changing, then generating a clean plate can be quite easy. Sometimes I just wait for the person to lean forwards or lean backwards, and I've got a perfect piece of green screen there that I don't need to generate or drag in. I'd much rather get a piece of green screen that I haven't had to pixel drag than the other way around. But by doing it on every frame and using the pixel drag, yeah, you can keep all of that flickering.
Sweet. Another question is from Mark. He's wondering, are there specific shots that work better with different keyers?
I've been going pretty
question.
hard out. Well, I've been going pretty hard out the last couple of jobs using the IBK because I just wanted to cement it in my memory and figure it out. I've done it on really bad blue screens and pretty bright green screens, and I've had incredible results. Admittedly, how if you've only got a hammer in your toolbox, all you see is nails. Admittedly, I was just going for the IBK on those, but I think it's great just to have another tool. If you're more proficient in the 3D keyer, then you're pulling keys with the 3D keyer. It's fine, and it's nice to be able to have another option to flick to when it doesn't work. I mean, with experience, you can sometimes look at a shot and go, well, that's not going to work with the 3D keyer. I need to use the IBK, or and that you can only really get to that level by doing them all and knowing what they're good for and what they're not so good for. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I get a good edge from my IBK, so my hair and my motion blur is really nice. But other times I can get a funny edge somewhere that doesn't satisfy me, and I'll pull a key using something else. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's $1 million question, right? But like we said at the very beginning of this, that's kind of the nature of keying and why it's so important to understand what's going on under the hood, because it's that one aspect really, maybe more than anything else, of compositing where, experience dictates what to do when something isn't working, when the one button isn't working. Well, sweet.
Yeah.
That was awesome, man. That was a lot to digest, but minds were blown. I mean, and everybody loved it in the chat, so thank you. And thank you for sharing the setups. I'll definitely make sure that that's posted with the episode.
Well, I'm very conscious that as it gets a little bit more advanced, certainly that last thread that I showed, as soon as I started touching on, I thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't be explaining this. Maybe, this is one of my more experimental pieces, where I've tried to take a different feed from the IBK. But the core fundamentals of the IBK are get a really good clean plate and look at what it does, where it compares the two. And I think just by having dissected the IBK and having that understanding, I'm eternally grateful. I'm now pulling parts of that out on all sorts of things. The crazy batch setup I showed with all the different techniques from different people that I've collected. It's beginning to make sense. I can see similarities in all of them. They all have some very similar sort of areas in how that they behave and how that they pull the key. So yeah, it's been really, really useful.
That's excellent, man. It's a great illustration. I think Renee called it out in the chat here. It's a great illustration of like, how to learn, of the learning process of, put it all out there and really just kind of bang on it until you understand it and you're better for it. And now we're better for it,
I hope so.
I hope so.
I hope you can take something away from it.
Oh, totally. Well, thanks, man. And Richard's going to join us in the patrons Q&A after this, so we can geek out and dive deep. If anybody has any other additional questions, if you'd like to be a part of that, just head on over to patreon.com/LogikTV, sign up, or shoot me or Randy a message, and we'll get you in on that chat. So let me go ahead and give away our big prize for today. Again, I want to thank the guys at Boris Effects. They've given away a 12-month license of Mocha Pro for me to give away here, I guess in honor of their big spring sale. Everything is 50% off. I'm sorry, Brian's going to kill me for saying that. No, up to 50% off on everything. See, it's the order of the words that really tell the truth. Up to 50% off on everything they have at the store. Check out borisfx.com for details. All right, here we go. Let's do this. We're back to the big wheel. Randy, I'll tell you all about this. I found it on wheelofnames.com, excuse me. Let's play the appropriate music here. All right, here we go. This is very exciting. Round and round she goes, and the winner is Jason Kalinowski. Congratulations, my friend. You have won yourself a 1-year subscription to Mocha Pro from Boris FX. Congratulations, man, and thank you again, everybody at Boris FX. All right, let me stop the music, and let's talk about what's coming up on Logic Live. Oh, you know what? Thank you, Charles Quinn. Charles Quinn, before we go any further, oh, thank God. I do. It's worth mentioning. In the little the title card for this episode, I showed, well, that's my grandmother and it's her birthday. But in the title card for this episode, I showed this, which is one of my favorite all-time experiences of being an on-set visual effects supervisor. At 3:00 in the morning, on a shoot that was supposed to be over by about 9 p.m. They announced they were going to bring in the car to shoot in this green screen studio, and I had approved like a black Bentley convertible. And of course, I was worried and conscious, about all the reflections that there would be and things like that. But unbeknownst to everybody on set, the artist who the music video was for took a look at that Bentley and said, no, I would never drive that. And he called up one of his friends, and he brought in this car, which is probably the only car in the LA area that was painted chroma key green. It was a phenomenal moment. These guys were filming the making of. And, I took pictures of it and I immediately emailed them back to the office and said, I resign, not because I refused to do it, but because now I've seen it all. There's nothing else. So thank you, Charles, for reminding me to tell the story behind that epic moment in visual effects history. Speaking of epic moments in visual effects history, coming up on Logic Live next week, next Sunday at 2 p.m., we're going to have Will Harris, who's the Flame Family Product Manager, and he's going to be there to talk about the Flame 2022 release. It's going to be great. If you have any questions, if you want to talk to Will, definitely please tune in for that. And then on Saturday, May 15th, we're moving that from Sunday to Saturday. Saturday, May 15th, we're going to do a virtual user group, and the theme of that is stories of old Flame. There's been this fantastic thread going on the forum about what it was like back in the good old days, and it's going to be great. We're going to have some great guests on, and we're going to talk about. It's just going to be like sharing war stories, but really the answer to why everything is the way it is because it was some way before then. So definitely tune in for that. That's going to be excellent. And then we're taking a couple weeks off due to the holidays here in the States. And then on Sunday, June 6th, we're going to return with Autodesk Fred Warren. We're actually doing a summer of Flame, really. I'm going to have a different member of the dev team on every month over the summer to talk about new features and new aspects of the 2022 release. So we're very, very excited about that. Please continue to make the forum as amazing as it has become. Thank you, Randy McEntee, for all your hard work. I think we're getting close to 1,000 users on the forum, and the stats are just amazing. The page views are amazing. They're so amazing, Randy, that that I deleted the slide and I thought it was coming. So, but yeah, we're at something like 100,000 page views a month on the forum, which has really been wonderful. Again, a reminder, on Wednesday, 4/28 at 12 p.m. Eastern Time is the Catch Up with Flame webinar, followed by the presentation of the Flame Award. The registration link for that is in the YouTube description, so please sign up for that. It's going to be amazing. There it is. I just had them out of order. All right. 5,000 page views a day, 1,000 page views per month. The forum has become an amazing place to connect and learn and share. So thank you very much, everybody, for signing up on the forum. This episode of Logic Live and all the previous episodes are going to be available on the website at logic.tv. I had a great episode of Logik podcast put out last week. Everybody really seemed to love it. It was a conversation with Grant McKeon from GVFX called Zed and the Art of Compositing Practice. Really, it's a conversation on lifelong learning. Richard referenced it earlier, and I highly encourage everybody to check that out. You can check out the Logik podcast, all the episodes on at any one of your favorite podcatching app of choice. Definitely check it out. And Randy and I do have a new podcast offering coming shortly. Hopefully next week. We'll definitely let you know. So stay tuned for that. I want to thank everybody who's subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the like and subscribe button here, and let's keep the party going. On YouTube, thank you again to all of our Patreon patrons, and I'll see you all over at the Q&A right after this. And if you need anything in the way of engineering support, please reach out to our friends at Gunpowder at info@gunpowder.tech. And of course, as I mentioned, Boris FX, their spring sale is ending at midnight tonight. You can save up to 50% on everything that they offer. So definitely check them out at borisfx.com. Thank you, AJA, for supporting Logik Live. And of course, thank you to our friends at Synesys for supporting Logik Live. Solutions in development, integration, and support, supporting flame artists since 1997. That's going to do it for this week. Thank you very much, Richard. And thank you, everybody. And we will see you next time.